Hey everyone, Sweet Johnny Cage here, back with another guide for Darksiders 3 on Apocalyptic difficulty. This is part 4 of my 100% walkthrough guide. In this part, we are going to rescue 4 humans and pick up 1 rejuvenation core, along with everything you see here. And we're going to end it after we kill Sloth, one of the next of the 7 deadly sins. This part's about 45 minutes long. If you are just joining these guides now, I know the last one I uploaded was like a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, but I've been sick, and you can probably tell by the stuffy nose sounding voice that I have now. But if you're just joining these guides, and this is the first guide of mine that you're watching for Darksiders 3, this is more of like a Let's Play sort of guide. There's so many collectibles in this game and treasure drops and just stuff to pick up that doing a true 100% walkthrough, you spend more time editing, and it just takes so long to get a guide like that out if it's all segmented. And, you know, there's so many like little hidden nooks and crannies that it's just easier and, in my opinion, better to do it this way. I'm not trying to like slack off on effort or anything. You know, I do put a lot of work into these, even for something like this, which is more of like a Let's Play where I just provide commentary over the actual walkthrough. But yeah, it's just, you know, it's just better to do it this way, in my opinion. So at the end of part 3, we killed Avarice. We unlocked this shortcut here, and we're essentially going to start from here. I did want to show that beginning part again because I actually missed a treasure in the last part. It's up on that alcove. So I just wanted to show you me getting the small orchard. I got it when I was talking. Sorry about that. But in any event, since I started putting these guides out, I have finished this game for the second time. I played it through once on challenging difficulty, I think, whatever was right for Apocalyptic, and then I went through it again on Apocalyptic. So these guys are a little bit more like put together. This is not a blind playthrough. You won't find me like searching for things. I really enjoy the layout of this game. I really enjoy the environments. I think it's just really well put together. I think it's a really fun game. So I sort of remember where everything is. I have a weird memory like that, where after I play through something once, I can pretty much remember where everything is. Especially in a game with no map, obviously. But in any event, here we are, we're going through the subway. Now we are on the upper portion, and we're going to make our way further into the Nether section of the we're going to end up fighting Sloth. Believe it or not, the first of the 7 deadly sins, aside from Envy, who is like the intro boss, it's the first of the 7 deadly sins that you actually see. And he's turned away from you on his throne across this big chasm. Yeah, right here, this is him. So you saw him earlier, and now we're actually gonna go towards him. So I like games that sort of tease things to you. I just think that's like a really cool way of doing things. But now that we have the Flame Hollow as well as the Thunder Hollow, or the Storm Hollow rather, we can burn away the spider webs that we saw very early on. And that's another thing that I really like about this game, is it encourages backtracking. It's a very, I won't say Metroid or Castlevania vibe or anything. But it does incorporate backtracking elements, which I think is just a really neat thing to do in games. I think it enhances world building. I think it encourages you to obviously go back to parts of the game that you think you've already explored. You know, showing you a doorway that you couldn't get through the first time. I just think stuff like that's really cool. So what I'm doing here is I just took a death against that enemy. I just wanted to resocket some resistance. I do edit out my deaths, but you know, they're all very obvious. You can see my blood stain, you know, whenever the footage transitions. So I'm not like trying to hide anything. I just try not to waste your time. I also did it at the low time. So just keep that in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is I'm playing this on patch 1.04. Probably should have said that at the beginning of the video, but the most current patch, as of this recording, is 1.05. And 1.05 incorporated a classic combat mode, Now, I have not gone back to this game since getting the Platinum in version 1.04, but apparently in 1.05, there's a new combat, or rather classic combat mode that has been implemented that is supposed to be more similar to Darksiders 1 and 2. It's been so long since I played Darksiders 1 and 2 that I actually don't really know what that means, which I think is terrible, but yeah, I just sort of forget. But yeah. So anyway, this is on 1.04. There was a bit of a difficulty balance patch in 1.04. Apparently it made Apocalyptic a little bit easier by normalizing the dodging frames, or your invincibility frames while dodging. Or rather, the dodge window, sorry, I don't know why. So it made it a little bit wider in 1.04, but it's still plenty hard. You can still take a decent amount of deaths. These big dudes here, these guys are really, really difficult. It takes a long time to kind of figure them out. They have a lot of different moves. They have just a horizontal slash, but then they can also run at you while kicking their legs. And that can basically, it won't one-shot you, but you get caught up in it and hit you 5 or 6 times and kills you. So I guess maybe that is like a one-shot, yeah, but if they're doing that, just try to get the hell out of the way. And you know, just deal with them. What we have here, sorry for the sniffles, like I said, I've been sick. Feeling better. But we have this, this is called Force Barnacles, or Force something. For now, we need these bugs to eat up the purple goop, and then we can throw them as an explosive. But eventually you will get the Force Hollow, and then you get the ability to just break that stuff. So as you can see here, I'm actually wondering if you could open that with a bug. Probably not. They sort of explode kind of fast in the can, but maybe you can. Maybe you can throw a bug across this gap and blow that up. I think there's just like an angelic artifact on the other side of that. I come back to that when I have the Force Hollow. I do random stack tracking. So I'm leaving it for now. I'll up there. This aqueduct here is pretty devastating. You have giant enemy crabs, and then you also have those things that pop out of these little statues, and like they just sink their fangs into you, and they are super devastating. So just, be on the lookout for them. But when you break those open, there is a chance that there's one inside that's already dead. You'll get some souls and possibly a health cluster as well. So I took another death here. These 2 crabs are pretty rough. Keep that in mind. Ideally, you do want to have your whip at a +3 or +4 at this point. The reason for that is because you want to be able to kill those crabs in just a few hits, because they are a big part of the sloth boss fight. So having those, having your whip upgraded is pretty important. So whenever you get it up adamantine, go ahead and upgrade it. Now, something else that I do want to point out that I actually didn't know at the time I was using this section is that this little river right here, this intersection, there's a treasure inside of a pipe. So, if you get into the water, you have 2 ways to go. You have the main way, which is how you go to proceed. But then if you drop down into the water right by the waterfall, there's another pipe for you to go into that has a treasure. It's either a angelic artifact. I can't remember what treasure it is, and I apologize for that. I try to do these things as thoroughly as possible, but there's stuff that even I miss. When I'm going through the section in like the main component of that guide, like for this guide, we went through the Nether, and I won't come back here until I do some backtracking. So I think when I have the Force Hollow, yeah, see, there's a pipe right there. I just didn't realize that there was a treasure in there. It just sort of missed it. I think I do come back here when I have the Force Hollow to break open that wall that was guarded by the red eye enemy. So I definitely come back here, but you can get that treasure right now if you want. But anyway, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into the scaffolding. We're gonna use the flame hollow to jump up. Do some weird platforming here. This is not the way you need to do it. That's how you can get it done. And then there's a treasure in here. I can't really remember what it is. I think it's an artifact. Yeah, an angelic artifact. Great. And then we're going to go ahead and make our way back down. So like I just mentioned, there's a lot of backtracking in this game, and whenever I get a new hollow, I do all the backtracking that I can, because I feel like that's sort of like an organized way to do it, rather than just like make a portion of the guide called backtracking. Like that's so vague that I would want it to be a little bit more specific. So I do return here when I get the Force Hollow, and then when I get the Ice Hollow at the end of the game, I do the last bit of backtracking as part of that little guide. So just keep that in mind, is that I will come back to these places when I have new abilities. But for now, we're just going to swing across these pipes, and then we are going to get to the other side of this chasm, and then we're going to pick up this treasure, which is a large lurcher clump, and then we're going to flip this switch and open the doors on the ground. It's actually also going to open the main door, which is how... Sorry, it doesn't open the main doors on the... It doesn't open the doors on the ground. It opens the main door in the river, and then that will allow us to get to the other side of these doors. This is my second playthrough, but these early puzzles I just sort of forget. I know the ending sections of the game, like the Scar, and the last part of the Nether with the underwater caverns and everything. I know that like really, really well, and the Bonelands. But like these early parts of the game, I just sort of forget. Anyway, one cool effect in the game that I really dig is that if you get into the water with the flame hollow equipped, your hair gets extinguished. And another thing that the game doesn't actually tell you, I don't think, is that you can unequip all of your hollows. If you just hold L1, you will go back to the base form of your. And her base form also has a wrath attack, similar to the Flame Hollow, the Storm Hollow, the Ice Hollow, and the Force Hollow. It's like just this, it's this whip attack that does a lot of damage. But what we're going to do now is, after we see Vulgrim, we're going to go up the stairs and we're going to rescue a human. This is the first of, I think, 4 that we're going to rescue in this section. Yeah, we're going to rescue 4 humans total, so that's the first one that we're going to get. There's 2 in one area, and then another shortly after that. So they kind of, after this first one, you have a little while, and then they come in quick succession. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to travel back to Maker's Forge, and we're going to do some upgrades. And this is something that I can't recommend you do enough, especially on Apocalyptic difficulty. Upgrade your weapons, upgrade your enhancements as often as you can. But also, since we have now rescued 5 humans total, we're going to get an item called Rider's Mercy. And Rider's Mercy doesn't start out as much. I think it starts out with like a 5% buff to your HP. But for every set of 5 humans that you rescue, there's 20 humans total. So every 5 you rescue, it gets another buff to the item. And eventually, at the end, when you rescue all 20, it is an incredibly powerful item. So you are really rewarded for rescuing humans in this game in kind of a surprising way. So yeah, just keep that in mind. You want to be rescuing humans, and after every 5, talk to Ulthane again, and you'll get a buff to Rider's Mercy. So now that we've gotten Rider's Mercy and checked our upgrades, we don't have enough to upgrade any further. But yeah, so the first buff you get is you get more lurchers when killing enemies, so you're gonna get more souls. So now we're gonna head back to the cistern, and then we're gonna proceed. We couldn't upgrade our weapons or anything just yet, so I'm not sure what I'm checking here. Oh yeah, we gotta flip the switch to open the doors when we backtrack again. It's sort of funny that like they let you do this. Like, it really doesn't save you much time, because like, you just went around the wall, but it's okay. They give you a switch. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna proceed further into the Nether. Now we're gonna get into the area with spiders, as you can tell by the webs and the egg sacs. Now this room here is pretty devastating. I took another death here. You have one of these hang enemies, and you have a big dude who's going to drop from the ceiling. There he is, and you just got to kill him. See, he sort of like bugged out for me and didn't attack for a while, so I was able to finish off the other enemy before focusing on him. He's just sort of like caught up in this wall and didn't do much to me. You probably will not have the same luck, but this room can be really tough. I actually encourage you to skip those guys. The Undying Shard in here, like, it's a cool item, You know, like it basically brings you back from death. If you use it and then you take a fatal hit, it will revive you. But there's like 3 total in the game, and it's just like not that great. Like it's not really worth it. As you saw there, that's the Harvester, and I want to talk about the Harvester in a couple minutes when we fight it. But yeah, so what I encourage you to do in that room is just drop down, break the statues, and go into the crawl space. Don't bother with those enemies. It's just not a fun room, and the reward is an undying shard. It's just like not worth it. Anyway, so in this next room we have a lot of these dudes. There's 3 of these guys. These guys can be and as you see there, I got caught up on the wall, so that's always going to happen. The camera in this game can be really frustrating, especially like the collision mechanics too. Pretty frustrating. You get caught up on walls, and you know, while your dodge does have invincibility frames, it feels like those invincibility frames get canceled up against the wall. Just you can't roll into a wall and like clip into the wall and use your invincibility frames. It doesn't seem to work. I could be completely wrong. I could be talking out of my ass. That's just how it feels to me. I'm not trying to like spread misinformation or anything, but it just feels like 9 times out of 10 when I'm up against a wall trying to dodge, my dodge doesn't work. So just keep that in mind. Your mileage may vary. This may have been fixed in 1.05. I have no idea. As of 1.04, that's how it works. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna head into this crawl space here, and we're gonna have our encounter with the Harvester. Now, I have no idea if you can kill the Harvester. I could not tell you. If it hits you 1 time, you die. And it seems like it's supposed to, like, this is supposed to be, it's very much an intentional death. You get a special cutscene. And it takes Fury away, you get transported into another section of the Nether, and it goes on. I have no idea if you can kill this thing. If you have killed it, please let me know, show me a video, I'd love to know what happens. But in any event, we're going to get taken away by the Harvester, and we're going to get taken to an area that is not accessible normally until you get the 4th hub. So, if you die in this section, you will be brought back to the Vulgrim near the cistern, and you will never see the Harvester again. That's the other thing that kind of bugs me, is that you never see the Harvester ever again. So as you can see there, that's the forced barnacles or whatever they're called, and you never fight the Harvester again. You never see it again. It is never mentioned again. It brings you here and then disappears for the rest of the game. So if you die in this section, you'll be brought back to the cistern, Vulgrim plinth, and then you will proceed. You'll drop back into that room, and then you can proceed as normal. So what I'm actually going to do is, I was lucky enough to be able to complete this section without dying. So I'm going to get through this, and then I'm actually going to work back to that plinth to show you what you should do if you die. Because there's still like a lot of treasure to get, a lot of really great treasure to get in that section too. So we're going to do both. There are 2 humans in this little, not hidden section, but wherever the Harvester brings you. There are 2 humans here that we're going to get. So keep that in mind. Here we have a red-eyed enemy. This was on the other side of the cavern. That we were able to see this enemy from the other side of this wall here, this stalactite, stalagmite, ultimate, is what I'm trying to say. So now we can kill this enemy and get the treasure. I think it's an angelic artifact. I could be completely wrong. It almost murders me. These guys just hit like this. This game has a really interesting difficulty curve where by the end of the game, when you're in the Scar and you have like a +10 weapon for your, yeah, it's an angelic artifact. So as you can see here, like this is the other side of that chasm. But at the end of the game, when you go into the Scar, you will likely have a +10 whip, and most things just melt. There are some really difficult enemies in the Scar. It's obviously like the last section of the game, so there are really tough enemies, but at the same time, like everything's dying to you, so if you can just like manage to dodge really well, it's just gonna you're going to have like a pretty easy time. So in this room we have multiple enemies that have these fangs that just sink into you, and then if you leave them at a distance, they will hurl poison balls at you. And luckily there is no real poison mechanic in this game. Like there are in the sloth fight, if you stand in sloth, definitely in gluttony. If you stand in the puddles, you will take damage, but like you can't get poisoned in this game, which is interesting because those guys are very clearly hurling poison at you. But in any event, I'm going to say in any event a lot. I need a new catchphrase. I'm going to clear this room. I think I might miss it the first time, but there is a pod on the ceiling, hanging from the ceiling that you need the flame hollow to open. I'm not sure if I see it here. It's been a while since I played this. This footage is, I think, 19 days old. I think I recorded this on December 9th. So what is that? 16 days. Okay, educated. So we get the sliver, and then inside of that pod is the medium lurcher cluster. So from here, we're presented with a couple of branching paths. So we're going to take this left path first, and we're going to deal with enemies over here, pick up some treasures. I think actually they're right there. One path. No, sorry, this path loops around. So this place is kind of confusing. And one thing I do want to tell you is do not drop down into any of these holes, because you will not be able to come back to this area until you have the Forest Hollow. So don't drop down into anything except in one very specific place, but it's not really a hole, it leads to another path. It's very obvious that it's not like a hole like the others. So yeah, just keep that in mind. You don't want to drop down into any of the holes or else you won't be able to come back, and you'll miss out on a lot of stuff. So, there's a sign buried in those webs back there for gunfire games, so they really could have themselves back to and then in this room, there's quite a few enemies. A lot of these little spider guys. They can be pretty annoying. They can deal damage. That's another hole you don't want to drop down. They can deal damage pretty quickly, and it's rather surprising because they're so tiny. But they can deal some damage. They are good for farming back up Nephilim's Respite, the green lurchers. So just keep that in mind. So don't ignore them. I always recommend killing them. They die in 2 hits, and they have a pretty good chance of dropping clusters for Nephilim's Respite. So we're gonna go up here. There's another Fang enemy here. I'm terrible at dodging these guys. Like even when I know they're there, I just suck at dodging them. So please forgive me. So yeah, we're gonna keep proceeding through here. There's not really a ton to say. This is a section or a part of the game that I don't understand how it made it past testing. But there are these huge walls that you very clearly need the Flame Hollow to get up. As you rescue another human here.
What is it?
So you very clearly need the Flame Hollow to get up the wall, but at the same time, do I get this here? Oh man, I might have missed that. Maybe I get it on the way back. There is a flame pod up there. We're gonna deal with another one of these enemies here. But there are like big walls that you very clearly need the Flame Hollow to get up, but you have to jump in like a very specific spot. In a spot that does not look like you're doing what you're doing. You're only going to get up the wall. So it's strange that they did that. It's like they built the world without checking. I don't know, that's weird. Like, you very obviously should be able to get up, but at the same time, it just like doesn't work half the time. So just keep that in mind. Again, okay, I do get this thing. Jeez. Those things are really easily missed. There's never anything like unbelievable inside of them. But yeah, so I'm not sure where that hole leads. I believe it just leads back to the main room in this section. But I didn't want to chance it, so I am just going to take the long way around, so forgive me for that. But now what we're going to do, since we've got one of the humans, we're going to go to the next section and rescue the other human, and then we're going to drop down and go back the way that most people will likely do this. Most people will likely die in here, and then they will have to come back later. So we're going to rescue the next human, and we're going to proceed down the more common route of the Nether. But yeah, so this is the hole you want to drop down. It's really not a big drop, it just leads down a path. So this is the one you do want to drop down. This is back in that main room where the bloodstain was. That's another weird thing about this game. Like, they place bloodstains. I don't even know if you're supposed to call them bloodstains. That's obviously a Dark Souls term, but they place a huge lump of souls in a room at random. Like, they're never really there to, like, indicate to you, like, hey, there might be a secret here. Like, it's never like that. It's usually just, okay, here's a big lump of souls, right? It's kind of strange. But you can hear a human right here. And that is very deceiving, because that human is actually underneath in another section of the Nether. So, I don't know if the humans are always the same. Like, I don't know if it's always, you know, a woman in, like, just say you play through, I don't know why I'm having such a difficult time saying this, like, just say you play through the game twice, right? I don't know if, you know, just say the first human you run into, like, a man or a woman, I don't know if it's the same every single time. I don't know if it's just random. But here I heard a woman's voice, so I started searching around, and in my head, I know for a fact that there are only 2 humans in this section. Because the first time I did this, I died here, and I had to come back much later. So here's the second human. It's this bald guy. So if he's a bald guy to you, great, then we know that, you know, this is likely, it's the same every single time. But I heard a woman's voice, so I got a little confused. But at the same time, I knew that it couldn't have been coming from here. And it had to either be a glitch, or it had to be, like, directly above or below another human. So yeah, just keep that in mind. There's only 2 in this section, but you will hear a third voice right here. So now that we have cleared everything out, what we're gonna do is we're gonna drop down that hole. I realize I ran past it, but I wanted to check for that woman one more time, just as a sanity check. But yeah, so we're gonna jump down this hole specifically, and this is going to bring us directly in front of another Vulgrim plinth, right here. So, now, we pick up the treasure next to Vulgrim, just a small Lurcher cluster, and what we're gonna do is we're now going to go back to the system. I'm speaking before I see the footage. I may decide to go back to Thane and try to do an upgrade, but we have now completed that section. And what I'll try to do is, when I get the Force Hollow, I will try to remember to tell everybody in that video to go back there if they haven't already. And I'll show you the entrance to that place in a few minutes. Like, it is very obvious that, like, you need the Force Hollow to get somewhere. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, now we can upgrade the Barbs of Scorn to +5, which is how far we're going to take it. And then we can also upgrade our 2 enhancements that we have, which is our Rage enhancement as well as our Fortifier enhancement. We can upgrade those to +3 each. And since we do have an Essence of the Chosen that we picked up in part 3 of this guide, if we had an additional 12 artifacts of the opposite side, we could upgrade that as well, but it'll be a while before we can do that. Now, the reason I have those particular enhancements is because I really enjoy generating Wrath. I think the Storm Hollow's Wrath ability is amazing. I think it's the best in the game. But yeah, so we're going to go back to the cistern, and now we're going to proceed like how most people will do it, and we're going to return to the scene of the crime where we fought the Harvester, or where the Harvester fought us, I should say. It didn't go well. And again, if you have killed that thing, please let me know. It doesn't have a health bar, so I'm thinking maybe it has infinite health and can't be killed. I didn't realize that before. I'm thinking about that now. So, yeah, so we're going to proceed through. It's a little slow. There's no, like, sprint in this game. Like, it's just, like, jog or run. It's never, like, super fast. But anyway, yeah, so we're going to drop down to this room, and now we can pick up the treasures that were there since the Harvester does not come back. So, yeah, it's a little strange. You never see it again. I don't really get it. We're going to pick up a medium Lurcher cluster, as well as a demonic artifact. And now we can proceed on through the more normal route. Yeah, so it's strange. I don't mean to harp on it, but it is weird that you never hear from that thing again, and it's never even mentioned again. And, like, I don't know, there's no, like, spider sin, you know what I mean? Like, they have, like, this big spider area that leads to sloth, which, I don't know, like, doesn't... You would think that, you know, with the way these things are... If you just heard a beep, my headset just turned off. Sorry about that. But, you know, with Wrath, especially, so Wrath you fight in the Scar, which is, like, the last section of the game. And...
Of any
that
species.
whole place is like an arena, right? Like, it's just like huge enemies that deal a lot of damage, they're all fighting. And even his boss arena is a coliseum. So like, it felt like they built that that section of the game around Wrath. Whereas this part, I don't know, doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, even Avarice, right? Like, there's like a ton of treasure around. You know, he's a hoarder. But for this section, you go through like this big spider and crab area, and you fight like a big bug. I guess maybe that makes sense what you're talking about. He is a big bug sloth. What's interesting is that there are multiple corridors that don't lead to anything. So weird. I don't know why that is. But yeah, so be very careful in this room. There is an enemy in here hanging from the ceiling that will drop. I think he's hanging from the ceiling anyway. It's one of those fang enemies that can shoot poison at you, so be very careful. And then there's another crab that I do believe drops from the ceiling behind you when you get near this enemy. Keep that in mind. Now, what we're gonna do a little bit of treasure hunting. So we pick up that frenzy shard, and then we are gonna go into this crawl space here. And there is a treasure at the end of it for us. And this is the only crawl space, I believe, that has any sort of treasure. The other ones are just dead ends. Yeah, so keep that in mind. See through here. One more crab to deal with. But we are going to enter an area in a couple minutes that is like a challenge room. And there are several of these like scattered throughout the game where it's just a room with a bunch of like big enemies that you don't see all the time. And then there's like some decent treasure in the room. So if you have been stockpiling your Havoc form, I recommend holding it until that room, as well as maybe having like a Havoc shard you want to use. As you notice, like I don't really use shards in this game. I try to just proceed as normal. You know, I'm not like knocking anybody who does in any respect. It doesn't bother me if anybody uses them. But yeah, just, you know, I don't really use shards. So if you have a Havoc shard, you may want to use it for this room. If you have a Wrath shard, you can use it for this room as well. If you don't build up Wrath as quickly as I do. But there are two huge enemies in this room here that we haven't seen in a while. And we actually saw it when we fought Wrath the first time in part 1 of this guide. I believe you do fight one of these things at that point. And this is like the last time you see these things until you fight Gluttony. Like after you fight Gluttony, actually, after you get the... Sorry, I've been saying the Ice Hollow is the Stasis Hollow. I don't know why I messed up the name there. But after you get the Stasis Hollow, you're able to fight a couple more of these things. In a similar fashion, they're like guarding an enhancement, like they are here. These bugs, I don't think they can damage the beasts. I do think that they can damage you. I know they can damage you, but you can't really use them against the beasts, which kind of sucks, but you know, it is what it is. So, what you want to do is you want to pop your Havoc form, just keep popping your Wrath, and just take these guys down. There's a few treasures scattered around the room that they are guarding. As always, you can just try to avoid them and just go after the treasure, which is perfectly viable. They don't give you like a ton of souls or anything, and like they don't drop treasures themselves. They're just guarding them, which is interesting, right? Like that's almost always how it is in this game. Unless it's a boss, they're not ever gonna drop anything crazy. So you can actually just sort of skip like all the enemies if you really wanted to. Yeah, you might have a hard time going through this game at level 1, but you know, it's perfectly doable, I guess. You know, you could 100% the game at level 1. Sorry, I'm a little sick, so I kind of like run out of breath really easily while talking. My nose is pretty stuffed up. But we kill them, and now we can go ahead and loot the treasures in the room. There is the Juggernaut enhancement in this room, right here. This is a pretty good enhancement. I use it late game. Just gives like a straight buff to strength. So it's actually really good to use late game when you have enough weapons. At the end of this game, you do get 6 weapons. You get the whip, you get the 4 stasis weapons, and then you also get salvation, which is a boomerang. You get that in the Bonelands later on. Yeah, so it's when you have all those weapons, you have a bunch of choices of what to slot where. And that's when I start to use the Juggernaut enhancement. When I'm ready to go into the Scar and I just need a big boost of strength, that's when I start using that thing. But use it whenever you like, So coming up here, as we make our return trip back into the subway station, this is yet another part where you very clearly need the Flame Hollow, but you can't actually go up the wall. Instead, you have to hop onto like a non-obvious rock to like give yourself a little bit of height, and if you don't jump onto the rock at the right pixel, you just slide off of it. So that's one of the things that I hoped for, like in a patch, like in a performance patch, is fixing that sort of stuff. But beggars can't be choosers. Don't get me wrong, this game is really good. I like it a lot. I would not have played it twice if I didn't. Content promises or not, like if I hated this game, I would have just said, hey, I'm not doing content for this game anymore. This game is just too much for me to handle. Like, I don't like playing it, but I do enjoy this game a lot. I especially enjoyed the second playthrough. But there are definitely things that I would have loved to have seen improved that did not get improved in any of the patches that I've experienced. So right here, this little area should look familiar to you, because this is actually the Vulgrim plinth that we dropped onto. So here we go. That's the other side of the loop. That's like the normal route that you would take. So we're going to feed him some souls. We're going to level up. We are now level 14 with a +5 whip. So if you're trying to like keep along, or if you're trying to like play this alongside me, that's where I am. We have a +5 whip. Yeah, a couple of well upgraded enhancements. So yeah, now we are ready to proceed. I do go to the Maker's Forge, but I actually cut it out because I didn't do anything there. So forgive me for wasting a couple seconds there. I didn't have enough to upgrade. I probably should have like kept a chart on my desk or something while I was doing this. But in any event, we're gonna fight this guy. That's his big leg kick move. That sucks. So be very careful for that. You do fight him in a pretty tight spot here, so doing forward arcane dodges may not be the greatest idea. It can be tough. But eventually he will fall, especially with the +5 whip. You do some good damage to him. He is a big body enemy, so he should, in my opinion, take some effort to kill. But with the +5 whip, he dies. He takes some steady damage, is what I'm trying to say. He takes some good damage. So we have some giant enemy crabs here, along with one of these green dudes. Again, I don't own the guide for this game, so I don't have a bestiary, so everything is just a dude to me. Or a crab, or if they are not obvious, like obvious plays on real world stuff, then I'm just gonna call it a green dude or a big dude. But yeah, so that big staircase up there is the entrance to the spider area that we just went through. So if you do die in that area, come back when you have the Force Hollow, break open this wall, and you'll be able to get back into that spider area. This Force Barnacle here leads down into the section that we covered last time, or rather when you get the Flame Hollow. It's the area with there's an enhancement in there. It's a big lava pool with a couple of rock golems. It's a hidden area that you get to after you revisit the room that you fought Wrath in. So that's the other side of that room that is blocked by a Force Barnacle. So you can get to it as early as you want. Once you get the Flame Hollow, just return to the room you fought Wrath in. Or you can wait till you have the Force Hollow and go ahead and return here and get in from that side. So I took a death against this big guy for obvious reasons. He just really messes you up. But yeah, so I'm going to kill him this time and reclaim the souls, and then we're going to proceed. So this area here, things are a little hard to see because of the lighting. As you can see there, I just walked past the treasure because I actually didn't even know it was there. But I heard it, and it's because that one alcove right there is just super bright for some reason. But yeah. Anyway, there are 2 of these monsters here, so keep that in mind. These guys will mess you up if you're not careful. As you can see, I really suck at dodging these things. For somebody who's making a guide, you'd think I'd be better, but I'm not. Just a guy playing a game. But they are guarding a rejuvenation core, so very important to get that. I do believe there's a trophy for that, for finding all of them. Or maybe it's the ones that upgrade Nephilim's Respite. Some of the items in this game just have like confusing names, or like they sort of do the same thing. There's an item that increases the amount of health you get from a Nephilim's Respite, which I think is a rejuvenation core. And then there's an item that increases your Nephilim's Respite capacity. So they're 2 different things. Anyway, yeah, there's an invigoration core and a rejuvenation core. I can't really remember which one does which. But we're going to rescue our next human. That is the 4th and final human of this section. So there will be no more rescues. And now what we're going to do is we're going to proceed to Sloth. So that is effectively all of the pickups. We've picked up all the major stuff. We got the Rejuvenation Core. We got Rider's Mercy. We got the 4 humans. And now we're ready to proceed. So up this big staircase, up this subway staircase, there's a few more enemies. The 2-armed guys. Sorry, I don't know the names of these things. I wish I did. But I'm not about to go spend like $40 on a guide just for that, especially when I've already beaten the game. I wish I could like look up the bestiary online. Maybe I could. Maybe I'll do that for the next part. But yeah, this guy can summon his friends to come help him. I actually just knocked one out of the air. Thank God I did, because it probably would have killed me had I not. But you do want to take care of these guys. So there's 4 total in this room. So there's the big one that we just killed, and there's these 2 smaller guys, and then there's another one at the other end who can throw his... he can like throw daggers at you, so be very careful. Yeah, this guy right here, he can throw stuff at you. He tries to back up and then does a big throw. He's guarding a treasure. So we will take care of him really fast. Pick up that treasure, and yeah, we will proceed. So what's interesting is that I believe that subway sign just said LJ 2 and 3. Like that's the trains that we're running. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, New York is a confusing place, but I feel like the designers maybe should have looked at an actual subway map, because there's no station here in New York that accommodates all of those lines. At least only those lines, you know what I mean? Like, I think, like, Times Square might, Grand Central might accommodate the L. I can't really remember, even though I take the L. I take the L and the M. But now we're going to proceed to Sloth, just a little nitpick. Sloth is... an interesting fight. He's broken down into 2 phases, and this is why it's very important to have a +5 whip for this fight. He is sitting on a throne of lies that is held up by crabs. So what you want to do is you want to kill the crabs holding up his throne. Now, this sounds easy, and I'm making it look pretty easy, but at the same time, he's pushes his staff, he slams his staff onto the ground and summons other crabs whom you cannot target. I don't mean to yell, I don't mean to like sound so angry, but it does bug the hell out of me. You cannot target the other crabs that he is summoning. So you have to deal with him swinging his big stick all over the place, and the crabs who can essentially 2-shot you if they sink their fangs into you, or their claws or whatever. So, like, you can't target him. The only thing in this room you can target is Sloth himself. So what you gotta do is you gotta be very careful and make sure that you are not, like, getting hunted by these crabs. Now, the good news is that in Phase 2, he does not summon any more of them. He only summons them in Phase 1. But, you know, if you weren't able to kill them all in Phase 1, or if, you know, you just didn't want to waste your time doing it, because, in my opinion, you kind of shouldn't. You should just zerg him down so he stops summoning them. Yeah, it's pretty important to just take care of him in Phase 2, and then focus on him. Now, if you have a lot of Wrath generation, this is where it comes into play. Sloth doesn't move very much. He's very slow, as his name implies. He can fly up in the air and slam onto you, but for the most part, he is pretty stationary. He's very, very slow, so using Wrath's Storm Hollow Wrath attack just melts his health. I can't recommend it enough. Be very careful fighting near the edges. You can get knocked off, and of course, being knocked off causes you to take a ton of damage. Also, you will respawn at the very beginning of the room, so if you were fighting anywhere but there, anticipate him flying at you. But yeah, the whip and the Storm Hollow weapon make really quick work of him. I think it's called a Storm Lance or Storm Spear. I can't recommend using that enough. And eventually he'll fall. On Apocalyptic difficulty, it took me like 2 attempts. First time I fought him on challenging, I think it took like 5 or 6. So when he dies, don't forget to pick up the Luminous Visage. That's the one thing he drops, and that will grant you some levels. So pick that up, and then what we're able to do now is we can open up a big shortcut, which I love stuff like this. We can open up a big shortcut by using the Flame Hollow, burning away the spiderweb, and then the subway car will now extend over this big chasm. And now we have quick access to Slot's area in case we ever want to come back. But yeah, this goes right back to the beginning of the Nether. So this is like the coolest stuff that I love, and I think Darksiders does this really, really well, is this world building. And here we are, back at one of the first Vulgrim plinths we ever visited. Now we can go back to the Maker's Forge and spend our upgrade materials if we haven't already. And that about does it for part 4 of my Darksiders 3 walkthrough on Apocalyptic difficulty. Now that I'm feeling better, I'll try to edit some more of these and have them out. But yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment. I'll do my best to answer you. If you like this style of guide and you'd like to see more like it, please subscribe to the channel so you get alerted when new stuff goes live. And yeah, that about does it. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching. I'm Sweet Johnny Cage, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.